Hello everyone. Again, welcome back. So today we'll be talking primarily on ER. Okay, so far we have covered setting up cluster on virtual machines or Amazon Web Services. We started with setting up YAML repository server after provisioning the virtual machines with the CentOS operating system, and then on top of it we actually installed Cloudera Manager on one of the hosts, and using Cloudera Manager wizard we started with setting up Zookeeper, then HDFS, then we have seen HDFS high availability, and then we have seen MapReduce classic framework in the execution context, not in the development context. So today we will be talking about ER, which stands for Yet Another Resource Negotiator. Before getting into that, let's recap the limitations of Classic. So the Classic is actually started with 1 minute. Yeah, Classic is actually started with development, the initial versions of Hadoop have HDFS and MapReduce Classic Framework, or MRV1 in short. So the disadvantage is it only works with works closely with HDFS and works effectively with HDFS. With other technologies, it doesn't have any idea. But as the ecosystem evolved, depending upon certain requirements from the clients, new tools started coming up. Like if you want to query the data and generate reports in ad hoc or interactive fashion, you cannot use any MapReduce based solutions such as Hive to issue a query into the database or submit a MapReduce job and get the results in interactive fashion. Interactive fashion means when you do some operations online, you should see the response immediately. It is called as interactive. If you cannot see the response within milliseconds or sub-seconds or within couple of seconds, then the user experience will take a hit, and people will not prefer the technology no matter how powerful it is in the backend. User experience is the paramount for many applications. So one of such application is connecting traditional BI tools such as Cognos, Tableau, etc. To Hadoop and generate reports out of it. Using Hive, it just takes 30 seconds to submit the job and get the results. And then if it has to process the data, it will take additional time. So Hive is no way interactive because it uses MapReduce internally. So as people encountered these issues, challenges, and they raised their concerns with the Hadoop ecosystem team, which is open source team, they started implementing new technologies such as Impala, Tez, and Spark, etc. So the Classic framework cannot keep track of the resources used by them. So that will make the administration aspect, especially from day-to-day operations, a nightmare. So you have to be meticulous to configure the properties very accurately, and still there will be gaps and there will be consistent issues. On top of that, as I have explained earlier, that is one use case which people are raising concerns about, that Classic framework works only with MapReduce, and at times the MapReduce jobs are in contention with other use cases such as visualization using Impala or some other tool. And the other aspect is, on a very large cluster, when too many jobs are submitted concurrently, as job tracker, which is the master, does both resource management as well as job management. Job management in the sense getting the information from the task tracker about the task it is executing, and consolidating the information and reporting it to reporting or logging it so that people can troubleshoot the issues. That is called as job management. So job tracker used to do both resource management monitoring the cluster as well as the job management, due to which when hundreds of jobs are submitted concurrently on a very large cluster, which involves thousands of tasks running at a time, the job tracker become unstable. If the job tracker become unstable and if it breaks down, then no job can be submitted, and it can impact many applications in Hadoop. So to make Hadoop multi-tenant, to reduce the overhead on job tracker, they need a new framework. That's where Yarn come into picture. Yarn stands for Yet Another Resource Manager, a generic job management tool which can share resources between MapReduce based distributed processing tools as well as non-MapReduce based distributed processing tools. So MapReduce based distributed processing tools are typically, from the execution context, running the MapReduce jobs. Whether you use Hive, Scoop, or any other technology, as long as it is executing using MapReduce job, Yarn can monitor those individual jobs. It cannot monitor the Hive query, but it can monitor those individual jobs which are submitted by the Hive queries. And on top of that, it also can we can also configure Impala, Tez from Hortonworks, more importantly Spark as also within Yarn. So that way, Yarn can have a bird's eye view about all the technologies, especially the processing frameworks running on the cluster, and it can make better decisions and handle many issues gracefully when multiple types of applications are deployed on the cluster. On top of that, as I have explained earlier, another challenge with Classic is it does both resource management and job management. In Yarn, the resource management is taken care by the master. The master's name is resource manager, but the job management is taken care by someone else called application master. So we will get into those details as we move forward. So setup process is straightforward. We have to follow the same instructions. So we will see all these things. What are the daemon process? What are the parameter files? And what are the web interfaces for Yarn? And also we will see where will be the logs and how to troubleshoot. Okay. So I hope you understand this picture. So first we will try to understand the architecture of Yarn, and then we will see the steps, what is the sequence of steps we need to follow till deploying Yarn. So we started with setting up. So when it comes to, first let me explain the architecture and the daemon process that are involved in Yarn. So we have three masters in our cluster. 242, 243, 244 are categorized as masters, and then I have 7 nodes actually. 3 masters, 242, 243, 244 as masters, and then 45, 46, 47, 48 are slaves. So those are the private IPs which I have for my 7 node cluster. So on 242, 243, 244, which are designated as masters, 242 is a gateway node or client node. It has very few components other than just submitting HDFS commands and MapReduce jobs. And then in those 3 masters, I want to deploy resource manager and app timeline server in one of the masters. So 242 will have the gateway or client. Either 243 or 244, I will be setting up resource manager. If I go with the resource manager high availability, both of them will be configured for resource manager. One will be active and one will be passive. And then all my slaves will have the node manager daemon process running. So the term for slave in the context of Yarn is node manager. For HDFS, it's data node. For Classic, it's task tracker. For Yarn, it's node manager. Okay. And when it comes to master, for HDFS, it's name node. If you use Classic, it's job tracker. If you use Yarn, it's resource manager. Okay. And then there will be some additional tools called app timeline server as well as the job history server, which will provide the details about Yarn based applications and also MapReduce jobs. So app timeline server is the history about yarn applications. So yarn application can be a MapReduce job. It can be applications submitted using Spark. It can be applications submitted using Impala. So app timeline server will keep track of all the applications that are submitted in yarn, whereas history server will only keep track of MapReduce jobs. So history server is a component of MRV2 which will be configured on top of yarn. So we will see those details as we move forward. Even if you don't understand completely, that is fine. But those are the terms which you need to get intuitive by the time we complete the course. All the masters, what are the slaves, how they will be configured. So the steps are, we started with 7 servers. 3 of them are designated as masters and 4 of them as slaves. And one of the master I have designated as gateway node, and also I have designated as M repository server. In typical production cluster, they can be different. You will have a M centralized repository server. You need not set up M repository server as part of your client, but all the nodes in the Hadoop cluster should be able to access the M repository server. Okay, but in our case, we have set it up on gateway node, and then we actually set up depending upon the choice of distribution. If it is Cloudera, we have set up Ambari agents and Ambari server. Ambari server on the gateway node, Ambari agent on all the nodes. Ambari server requires a monitoring database, so it can be embedded or it can be external also. When it comes to Cloudera, the master for monitoring is Cloudera Manager, which will be hosted on one of the nodes in the cluster. In our case, it's gateway node. Every node, including the master, will have the agent, because we have to, agents are the ones which are used to monitor the nodes. So whether you use Ambari or Cloudera, you have to set up agent even on the master, so that it can even on the server where Cloudera Manager or Ambari server are running, so that the monitoring agent actually can monitor the resources used by that host also. Okay, then we set up HDFS. When we actually set up yarn and MR2, typically we will not set up classic. We will decommission the classic and set up the yarn, or we will add yarn. After a while, we will decommission the classic. Either way can be done. If you are trying to upgrade, you will be decommissioning the classic and upgrade to yarn. If it is the new cluster, typically we will use yarn only to set up yarn and MapReduce too. Okay, so configuring. Now let us see the steps to deploy. It's the same thing as any other tool in our cluster. So few people are attending both developer and administrator course, especially Ratan. So let me restart it, and then I will explain some important points by the time it actually starts the cluster. Okay. So people who are actually attending my developer course as well, means they might not be attending the course directly, but who are following the Cloudera certification course from the developer side and attending administrator training. So I have launched this website called itversity.com over the weekend, and I started uploading the content for CCS, Spark and Hadoop developer certification here. So one of the challenge when people are preparing for this certification is that they have to watch the videos in YouTube, go to GitHub, get the code, and then practice in the lab that is set up on the PC or on cloud. So to address that, I have created this course. You can, it's open for now. I didn't have any sign up also yet, but eventually there will be sign up. So once you go to itversity.com and click on this, you will see the course introduction and then the course content. So I started uploading all the major topics in the certification as lessons. So these are lessons in the course, and if you open a lesson, all the main learning tasks that are highlighted in the certification, which are related to Scoop, importing data from MySQL, exporting data to MySQL, and rest of the stuff are added as topics here. So now if they click on one topic, all the important text, all the important points are in the text format. So, and then they can watch the video to understand the complex concepts. And if they want to practice, they don't need to go to GitHub and copy the data and start practicing it. They can just practice directly by copy pasting code from here. Okay, so start using this so that I get traffic to my website and highlighted in search engines. If you are preparing for the Cloudera certification on top of going to the administration course. Okay, so I will, and also please start giving the feedback so that if there are any gaps and if you feel that there are certain things which need to be improved, I'll take care of it for future audience. One minute, okay? There is some. Okay, so that's about my website, and also another thing which you can do is, if you want to share with your friends about a particular topic or any about a particular course or about particular lesson, you can just click on this one and you can share on Facebook, Google Plus. I will be adding LinkedIn also very soon. So whatever social networking platform you are active on, you can actually do that. And also I'll be blogging a lot. If you want to subscribe to my blogs, you can actually just enter the email here. Whenever I post as a blog, you will get the notification and you can go to the blog. Okay, so that's about my brief introduction about my website. Now let us go back and start looking into the steps that are involved to add the YARN service to the existing cluster. Okay, so to add, again it is already added, but I will just highlight the steps. Just click on add a service, choose YARN, hit continue, and then it will show a window where the hosts need to be selected. So don't use the host on which Cloudera Manager is installed if you are setting up the cluster on AWS. With VMs, there is no choice. We have only 4 nodes. So one node with 4 GB RAM will be considered as master if you follow my videos. In the master, you can actually set up the resource manager, app timeline server, job history server, everything in one host. Here, don't use the node which is used to install Cloudera Manager, so that you have clear understanding between the roles of different tools and the top you have clear understanding about the cluster implementation. Okay, so choose the one of the masters as resource manager. Again, in a very large production cluster, we will have more than 3 masters, not just 3. In our case, we have 3. One have the Cloudera Manager, and the other 2 have active name node and passive name node. Typically, in production clusters, we will not share the resources between name nodes and resource managers, because both are very heavy and it can impact each other. We will have lightweight components such as Zookeeper on the same nodes where we have name node and resource manager, but we will not share the resources with anything other than those lightweight software processes on the masters. So on a very large cluster, even the cluster with 100 nodes, medium to large cluster, you will have at least 5 to 6 masters, and two of them you have to configure as the active passive name nodes. One of them will be resource manager. Hardly very few people where the cluster is very big will have two resource managers with high availability. High availability is not common when it comes to resource manager. On the host which is configured as resource manager, you should not have anything else. Okay, so when you face this question in interviews or planning, etc., on implementing the larger clusters, you need to keep in mind name node, active passive if you are configuring, or even with typical configuration, name node and secondary name node, you should never share the resources on these critical masters. They are especially name node is a single point of failure, so it has to be decoupled with all the other kinds of overhead except for the operating system and the lightweight process such as Zookeeper, journal nodes, etc. Okay, that's about name node. Even resource manager, you have to apply the same rule. You should not share any other major component on which resource manager is running, whether it is name node or Cloudera manager, or if you are using HBase, there will be HBase master. Those things should never be configured on the nodes which are designated for a particular master role in these important tools such as MapReduce and HDFS and MapReduce. Okay, once you choose master, slaves will be automatically selected. Whatever nodes on which data nodes are running, slaves will be there. They will be automatically selected. You just have to review and make sure that it is the case, and that all the nodes which are configured as data nodes are configured with node manager. But as I have explained as part of the last class, there can be a scenario where you have fewer nodes for data nodes and larger number of nodes for yarn where node managers needs to be installed. In those exceptional scenarios, you have to go to the slave section and choose all the nodes which has to be configured as slaves. Those will be highlighted in a drop down menu. On top of these resource manager and node manager, if you recollect the previous slide where I have highlighted all the important concepts of yarn, you have seen app timeline server and job history server. App timeline server has to be running on the same node as resource manager. You will not see separately beyond resource manager. It is part of resource manager. Typically, we will set up with resource manager itself. And then job history server can be set up on any node. It could be a different node altogether, or it could be a different node altogether, or it could be on the same node where resource manager is running. So all these are nothing but software process which is supporting the cluster: resource manager, app timeline server, job history server, and node managers are the ones which will be monitoring the cluster, and also which will help us in getting the details of the jobs and applications once they are executed. Okay, so choose those things. On our cluster, I have used 243 as resource manager and 244 for job history server. It could be on the same node also, and then hit continue. Everything will be, means some of the important parameters will be highlighted. I will review those parameters. You have to change those parameters in while setting up the cluster in production. For development environments or for POCs, you can take the defaults of most of the memory parameters. But while setting up the production cluster, you have to review, and if required, you have to make the changes. And most likely, you will end up making the changes. Okay. So once you make those changes and hit continue, so it will take in actual implementation, this setting up yarn is one of the most complex parts. Okay, complex type. It's not complex, but it is tedious. You have to spend a lot of time to make sure that everything is done properly, especially the memory settings. So you will spend at least 1 hour in doing all these things, and then hit continue. everything will be deployed. Once it is deployed, you will see the component started. Okay, I think one of the data nodes are on have lesser storage left, so I will actually look into that issue later. So if you once it is up and running, you will see if you are using Cloudera distribution, you will see the section like this. Okay, and then it will highlight what are the node managers, what are the resource managers. I have resource managers 2 here. I have configured high availability. It's very easy. I will not get into too many details. You can watch my videos and configure high availability. It's very simple compared to HDFS high availability. So you can click. I can click on instances here. I can review how is my cluster. So I have active resource manager, standby resource manager on 243 and 244. 242 is the one which is considered as a gateway and also running the Cloudera manager in this case. And one more thing you need to remember is when you are using Cloudera manager, when you are adding these services individually, gateways will not be configured automatically. You will not see the gateway component here. So when you review the instances, if you don't see the gateway, immediately click on add role instances. If you click on add role instances, it will show the gateway and you can choose whatever you want to configure as gateway and just deploy it. It will just take a couple of minutes to deploy and you will get a gateway node for your cluster. Okay, so add role instances is the key. If something is misconfigured, if you want to replace those things, you have to click on that and you can change the node managers, you can change the gateway nodes here. Masters will not be manageable from add role instances. Only the gateways and the slaves can be reviewed and changed by clicking add role instances. And this add role instances will be there for almost every tool. As long as you are aware of this very important button, that is more than enough if you want to change the cluster configuration once the cluster is set up. Okay. And then we have active resource manager, standby resource manager, and we have job history server. These 3 are considered as masters. In this case, job history server is deployed on 243. You can have it on any node in the cluster. Typically, we will be having, if you have high availability, we will be having resource manager and job history server. We will be having resource manager on both the nodes and job history server on one of them. If you are using typical configuration where there is only one resource manager, it is a good idea to move job history server onto a different node than resource manager. Okay, and then you have node managers running on 245, 246, 247, 248. Similarly, if you want to review the other, sorry, not this one. Yeah, this is the one. Let me log in here. I am reviewing from Hortonworks side. Now, I have covered Cloudera Manager, how it will look like. I will be reviewing from the Hortonworks side also. So if you want to change the configurations, you have to click on the configuration and then you have to search for the parameters and you can make the modifications. Or if you understand the scope and categories in detail, you can use these things also to change the parameters. So in this case, if I want to change the memory parameters, I can choose yarn and then click on main. Let me see if it has any memory related configurations here. There are no memory related configurations, so this is not the right one. Resource management, no, not even this one. Advanced, not even this one. There is yeah, probably this is the one which we need to look into. Okay, main. Okay, so I have sent it to him. So let me show you. So here you have to means if you want to change any memory settings or anything, you have to means if you know the category scope and category, it will be easy over time. I am also not very familiar with this because they have introduced in recent versions. Earlier it used to be in a different format. So let's say I want to change memory settings. I can search with OPTS for MRV2, not this one. Memory -MB. So this is the one, node manager memory. If you want, you have to search in the node manager. Okay, then you will get in the node manager where 1 minute memory -MB. So it is under node manager resource management section. Okay, so now you can delete this and click on resource management, and it will give all the resource management level parameters. So these things are the ones which needs to be reviewed. Okay, I will come back to this after showing Ambari also. Okay, so when it comes to Ambari, okay, when it comes to Ambari, here you can actually click on yarn, and you can see that there are two sections in Ambari. One is for yarn and one is for MapReduce 2. So all the details about MapReduce 2 will be in MapReduce 2, whereas in Cloudera it's different. You have yarn in different section, yarn and MapReduce together, yarn MR2 included. So that's major difference the way they have organized. And then if you want to check the configurations for yarn, you can click on yarn and click on configs. Okay, and then you will be able to see all the important settings in the settings itself. Okay, now you can see that memory allocated for all yarn containers on a node, it's 4 GB, minimum container, maximum container. So all the memory and CPU related things are here. So if you are using Ambari, you just need to focus in this section. Means when you try to set up the Ambari, when you try to set up the cluster using Ambari, they will ask to customize settings. In that you have to review these settings. The window will look like this only, even in the wizard. Unlike Cloudera, the window when you try to review the configurations is different from the view to configure the settings is different from the configuration section after the cluster is set up. Okay, while setting up you will see the configurations in a different manner, and after setting up you will see configurations like this. Whereas in Ambari it will look exactly same. Whether you are while setting it up, there will be a time where you have to configure the parameters. It will provide the same view for you to actually review these important memory and container level settings and set up the cluster. Now these are the important parameters which you need to consider, you have to review, and you have to set up more accurately. So again, you have to go back to the capacity planning, understand how much memory you have, and based on that you have to configure settings here. Okay, so for that Cloudera have actually provided a blog on that, and then I will explain how you should interpret that blog to configure cluster effectively with this, to configure these memory settings effectively for your cluster. Okay, so Cloudera capacity yarn capacity planning. So the title says tuning yarn, but it should be actually capacity planning than tuning. Okay. If you see, it will explain how containers will run and all those things. You don't need to worry much about here. Now they talk about worker host configuration. Okay. So for master, resource manager does not use a lot of memory. So and also there will be nothing on that node except for the OS. So if you have 32 GB RAM, you can give 16 GB RAM to resource manager. Okay. But for this is primarily for the slaves, which are node manager. Okay. Here what they are saying is they are taking the example of servers which have 256 GB RAM and 48 CPU. Okay, it's for each node. See the capacity of this cluster. They are talking about 256 GB RAM on each host and 48 cores. Okay, they are talking about 8 CPUs. Each one will have 6 cores, which means 48 cores on each node. Okay, so if you have 10 nodes, that means if we have 10 slaves, that means we have 2.5 terabytes of RAM and 480 cores capacity on the cluster. Okay. That being said, now if you scroll further, they have clearly explained. It's not zooming in. Let me do this. Yeah, I hope it is visible. Let me zoom in a little bit further, but this is not zooming up. I hope it is visible. No, this is not zooming up anymore. Okay, anyway, I will try to explain. I will provide the link. What you can do is you can open up in your machine and you can also view from your machine directly. Okay, so now I will review the parameters. So open the link. I will just give you half-minute time so that you can open the link and go to step 2, worker host planning. This is the most important planning from the planning aspect, most important task while planning the cluster. Okay, because except for yarn or we don't use classic. If you are using classic, it's a different story. Except for that, this is where we will actually start doing due diligence for cluster planning to set up yarn and other components in the cluster. Okay, so if you go here, go to worker host planning. Worker hosts are the most important ones. Those are the ones which will do the heavy lifting on our cluster. So here you can see out of this is for each node. Cloudera is recommending the capacity planning should be this way. They are saying 8 GB should be given to operating system. So we are talking about 256 GB cluster. Okay, so 256 GB host. Each worker node or slave node have 256 GB RAM in it. So this is for each host. We will be allocating 8 GB for operating system. Okay, if it is lesser size host like 64 GB, we can reduce it little bit, probably 6 GB or something. Operating system will take a good amount of memory. Whether you are running on 64 GB or 256 GB, the difference might not be linear. Okay, on smaller size cluster, typically we will smaller size hosts. Typically, we will give 25% of memory to operating system. So if it is 16 GB RAM, we will give 4 GB to it. If it is 64 GB, we will give. It need not be 25%. We can reduce the percentage as we scale of the host size. But up to 16 GB, we typically give 25% to the operating system. In this 256 GB, we only give 8 GB for operating system, and then Cloudera Manager or Ambari agent has to be running on all these hosts. So it will take at least 1 GB of memory on a production scale cluster. On top of that, if you have any other services, typically we will not have any, but for any reason, if you have to set up which are not within the Hadoop ecosystem, you have to consider some amount of memory for that also. Okay, and then I will give an example for the other services also. So there are compliance related tools where data will be tokenized and de-tokenized, or encrypted and decrypted. So those tools will be deployed on all the nodes in the cluster. And also there are tools such as Data Mirror, where visualization can be done on the data, which is not completely open source, but it can work effectively with Hadoop ecosystem. So those are categorized as other services. So if you are deploying other services, you have to keep memory aside for it. Okay. Initially, you can start with 0. If you want to add any service after cluster is set up, again you have to go to this diagram or create a spreadsheet and allocate that memory and reduce the existing memory settings for node manager. Okay, that's how you should plan. So after other services, we have to have data node on the cluster if you want to use YARN, and data node also takes some memory on each of the node. Typically 1 GB is more than enough. In some cases, we might give 2 GB for when we troubleshoot the issue, and if Cloudera recommends or Hortonworks recommends that increase the data node memory size for performance reasons, we might give 2 GB, but we don't give more than 2 GB for data node. And then in the cluster, if you are trying to set up an Impala as well, so you have to give some memory to that. So you have to understand how much memory you want to give to Impala. You have to add that. HBase region server, you have to add that. Solar server, these are additional tools which will be deployed on the same cluster, and at that time, all these things, if you set up Impala daemon will be there on all the slave nodes. If you set up HBase region server will be there on all the slave nodes. If you have Solar server, a slave related to Solar will be there on all the nodes. So you have to allocate memory for all these things if you are planning to set those also. But on the plain slate, if you just want to set up YARN, you don't need to worry much about it. And then node manager itself takes memory. So node manager is the one which will keep track of the resources on the node. It also takes memory. Okay, so it will take 1 GB at the max. We don't give more than 1 GB. Some cases we might give 2 GB. That's it. So once you add all these memory which are required for other components to keep the cluster up and running, and subtract from our overall capacity, which is 256, whatever is the outcome. Here it is approximately 8 plus 9, 8 plus 1 9 plus 1 10 plus 1 11. So 256 minus 11 GB, 245 GB is 250,880 MB. So this is not 250 GB, this is 245 MB. Okay, sorry, 245 GB, 250,000 MB and 245 GB. So we have 245 GB memory on each node in the cluster, and that will be given for our containers. Containers are the ones which will execute map tasks and the reduce tasks. So we are giving in the map reduce context. So we are giving 245 GB RAM for our task to execute in the cluster. Same diligence needs to be done on the core side also. On the cores, operating system need to have at least one CPU core, and Cloudera Manager agent need to have one. Similarly, all the services that are running need to have at least one or two. Typically, one is more than enough. In this case, we have only operating system, Cloudera Manager agent, HDFS data node, and YARN node manager. So we have 48 cores on each of them. Hence, 48 minus 4, is 44. And then physical cores to vCores. So these physical cores can be divided into virtual cores because even when you run MapReduce jobs, it need not those tasks will be spending some money on some time on IO. When IO is being done, that capacity can be used for processing purposes. So CPUs are required only for processing. For IO, CPUs will be bypassed for most of the time. Only at some point in time while performing the IO, CPU will be involved. Once IO is started, CPU will not be involved. So depending upon type of the cluster you are trying to configure, depending upon the workload you are trying to use on the cluster, you have to set this physical cores to virtual cores multiplier. Okay, so they are saying use one for CPU intensive tasks so that it does not go to sleep all the time. But if it is doing IO, then automatically CPU will go to sleep for the task and IO will be happening on the cluster. For IO, it will use IO channels. It does not use CPU for IO. So if it is IO intensive cluster, then you can go up to 4. If it is hybrid, so there will be some jobs which are CPU intensive, there will be some jobs which are IO intensive, but not everything is either CPU intensive or IO intensive, then you can give 2 or 3. This you need to understand what type of applications we will be deploying, and based on that we have to give this multiplier. So 44 into 4, 176. So we can configure 176 virtual cores for each host, and we have 10 hosts. So our overall cluster will be 1760 hosts, and we have 245 GB RAM on each host, and we have 10 hosts, so around 2.45 terabytes for 2.45 terabytes memory and 1760 cores for our cluster to be set up. But per host it is 176 and 245, and these things has to be applied here. So here you can see that memory allocated for all yarn containers are on a node. So this is the capacity on each node from the memory perspective, how much should be given to node manager. So node manager is the one which will be creating the containers. So this is not node manager memory, this is the memory which we are allocating to the tasks that will be executing under the purview of the node manager. Okay, and this is the host level capacity. So after doing the capacity planning, it has to be 245 GB here. Okay, and then containers, depending upon IO, again these are actually memory settings for the container. So this will actually tell what are the ranges of the container when tasks are being executed. So each task will be executed in a container. Okay, so these are the ranges of the containers. So you will understand this in a moment. Forget about it right now. Don't worry about container at this time. This is the overall memory setting which we are trying to give it to node manager to execute the containers, which in turn run MapReduce tasks if we submit MapReduce job. And then CPU. Okay, this is the important parameter which will determine how many CPUs or vCores we should give for each node manager. In our case, it is 176. So that 176 number should be provided here. Okay, and you don't need to worry about most of these other things at this time. That you can worry about while working on the project, depending upon the issues. You will learn the other parameters, but most important parameters when you are configuring yarn is the let me highlight here. It will show the parameter name. If you look at the right side, you can see the parameter name is yarn.nodemanager.resource memory.mb. Okay, it's in gray color in the middle. Similarly, for number of virtual cores, this is the parameter arn.node manager.resource.cpu -v cores. Okay, so this is per node. This is at host level. If you have 10 nodes, if you give 176, our capacity will be 1760 virtual cores. If you give only if it is CPU intensive, then number of virtual cores will be number of physical cores. In that case, the number of virtual cores will be 48 based upon our capacity on each host, and for the cluster it will be 480. Now, if you open Resource Manager web interface, okay, so go to Quick Links, Resource Manager UI. You can see here virtual cores total. So this virtual cores total and memory total. Okay, these two parameters and these two values, when you log into the Resource Manager, are generated based on these two values multiplied by number of hosts in the cluster. So it is the overall capacity in the cluster. Once you go to Resource Manager web interface, you can easily identify how much memory is there, how much cores are there. Unlike Job Tracker UI, it will say number of mappers and number of reducers. Here it will say total memory and total cores, because number of mappers and number of reducers that can run in a cluster can change for each job when you use yarn. Yarn will give that additional flexibility to increase or decrease number of tasks that should be executed. Okay, so now let's talk about the container settings. So this container is this container settings will actually determine the minimum and maximum number of mappers mappers and reducer tasks that can be executed on the cluster, or from MapReduce context. From yarn context, the container will tell whatever framework that is using yarn, such as MapReduce. We have to configure memory within these ranges for those for the tasks in that. So for now, just remember that minimum container size is 1 GB, maximum container size is 4 GB. Minimum vCores, minimum number of vCores is 1, and maximum number of vCores is 3. Okay. Now we will use yarn for the MRV2. So for MRV2 related parameters, you can click on MapReduce 2, and on the front page itself, you will see the MapReduce framework related parameters, most important settings. Not the advanced, will give you advanced details. Here you can see map memory, reduce memory, and app master memory. So these are the three things which you keep in mind. Okay. So as MapReduce, as we are trying to use yarn for MapReduce, we can configure, and map task and reduce task will be executed as container. From yarn perspective, the task name is called as container, so it will be executed in the container. From MapReduce context, we'll be running map tasks and reduce tasks, and these will be running within the container. So if you recollect, our container minimum memory is 1 GB and maximum memory is 4 GB, and here we have said map memory is 1.5 GB and reduce memory is 2 GB, and these settings should be within the range of 1 GB and 4 GB. It should not be beyond those values. So we are defining any container that executes in yarn has to be in 1 GB to 4 GB range. That's where this container related, let me open another window that will make it a lot more clearer to you. Okay, now once the configs come up, I will talk. Yeah, now you can see that container memory is within the range of 1 and 4 GB. Whatever tool you configure to use yarn, in our case we are talking about MapReduce, which is by default configured with yarn in most of the cases. The tasks that will be executed in MapReduce are map task and reduce task, and these parameters, map memory and reduce memory, tell how much memory will be taken by these map tasks. And from yarn perspective, these are all containers. So whatever range we have defined in the container, we have to satisfy those ranges. We can only give between 1 GB and 4 GB for map memory and reduced memory, and also for application master. Application master also will be executed as container only from the yarn context. Yarn context, everything is container. Depending upon the framework that is deployed, the terms will be different. In this case, when it comes to MapReduce, we see mapper, reducer, and app master. So these are the ones which will be executed in the container. All the things has to be defined within 1 to 4 GB range. That's why you can see that the window here is 1 to 4 GB, and this range is inherited from the container memory settings. Okay, and then so it should show the vCore settings also. Probably it might be in the advanced. Okay, advanced MapRed site. Interesting. It should show up here. 1 minute. So it's not showing up here. I don't remember the exact parameter name. Even the vCPUs or virtual cores also should be in the range whatever is defined here. Number of virtual cores is 1 minute. I am a little bit confused. Yeah, this one, minimum container size and maximum container size. So minimum container size is 1 and maximum container size is 3. And even for MapReduce, there will be parameters where we have to provide the default container size within these two values. Okay. Similarly, if you are trying to use Impala and if you want to configure the yarn with it, the terms, you will go to the configs of Impala or Spark, and in the settings of the memory, whatever tasks that will be executed, you will see those terms, and you have to give the memory settings within 1 to 4 GB and CPU settings within 1 to 3 cores. This is how the yarn will drive the resources of the underlying tools that are managed by it. Okay, I hope it is clear, because this is very, very important for you to understand. Okay, and if you scroll down, you can see that number of worker hosts in the cluster is 10, and I am talking about you can actually come back to this one and just watch my window. So I am at step 3, cluster size. The number of worker hosts in the cluster is 10 in this case, and here they are saying if it is IO intensive job, you can say yarn.nodemanager.resource.cpu vcores is 176, okay, and the memory settings is 245 GB, and the total cluster capacity is 1760 from vcores perspective, and the total memory is 2.45 terabytes on all the 10 nodes on the entire cluster. Okay, and you can dig it further, and here they are saying that, so in our case the minimum allocation vcores is 1 and maximum allocation vcores is 4, but here they are saying to use 1 to 32, so that we can give flexibility for different types of tools that are being deployed on the cluster. Okay, but in our case it's a small cluster, so we have used 1 to 4 only. So that underlying tool does not use any capacity more than 1 to 4 for each task. Okay, and then these are the parameters which we have seen here. Where is the yarn? This is the yarn. So these two for our cluster, minimum container size from my memory perspective is 1 GB, maximum container size is 4 GB. In this case, they have defined 1 GB and 8 GB. And if you want to increment the size, so you can start with 1 GB, and if you want to increment, it should be allocated in 512 MB, and this will come into picture for some of the tools. It might not come into picture for all the tools. You can leave it as default, whatever it picks, 512 MB or 1 GB, because from MapReduce perspective, we are hard coding the settings, saying use 2 GB for map memory and 1 GB for reducer, or 1 GB for map and 2 GB for reducer, something like that. Okay, and now here they are saying, depending upon the type of combinations you use, the capacity, the number of containers that can run concurrently will change. Okay, for example, if they use one vCore, so how many vCores we have? We have 1760 vCores, right? Okay, if we use one vCore for each of the tasks that are running on the cluster, so it can go up to 1760 containers from the vCore perspective. And the smallest number of containers is, we are saying it could be 32. So if you scroll up further here, maximum allocation vCores can be 32. So if you are using 32 vCores for each task, there could be 55 containers or 55 MapReduce tasks can run concurrently in our 10 node cluster. Similarly, from memory perspective, if we use 1 GB, we'll get 2450 tasks. We can execute 2450 tasks. And the smallest number from memory perspective is 306, because we have given 8 GB. These are ranges from CPU perspective and memory perspective, but we should not isolate them, and we should not think in isolation. For example, we have only 1760 vCores, and we cannot submit more than 1760 jobs, even though from memory perspective they can have 2450. So if you have 1 GB RAM for our map and reduce task, and 1 core for our vCores, that means only 1.76 terabytes of memory will be used, because rest of the stuff cannot be allocated to anything. There is no capacity to allocate this memory and process the data. So the maximum number of containers that can be configured in this cluster with 1 vCore and 1 GB RAM is 1760. We cannot create more than that, even though from memory perspective it can go up to 2450. The reason is the reason why I'm explaining this is, you should not see these things in isolation and think that we can actually submit jobs which can run up to 2450 containers in our cluster. That is not the case. These things have to be clubbed, and then you can determine how many tasks can be run on this cluster, and the resources should be used effectively. We should not waste the memory, we should not waste the containers. So we have to come up with appropriate memory settings so that we can actually use both core capacity as well as memory capacity. If you fail to do so, then you will be wasting either CPUs or wasting the memory. Okay, so this is how you can actually plan your cluster and then set those settings. It will take time for you to digest, go through this article or blog, and then watch my videos again and again, and also review the parameters multiple times, because you have to master this before setting up the cluster, even for the POCs. Okay, so let me know if you have any question before we talk further. So far we have seen how to set up yarn on the cluster, and the most important parameters from the CPU and memory side to leverage the cluster effectively, to use the cluster effectively for our MapReduce applications that will be running on the cluster. If you don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and talk on other topics within YARN. And also, once we complete the course, I will review the capacity planning. I will spend at least half an hour to 1 hour only on capacity planning, keeping each and every component in the cluster in mind, not just HDFS or YARN. And also, I will show how we should actually set up the cluster using all the components at a time, rather than adding one component at a time. You should be in a situation where you can add the cluster in one shot. Okay, that way you don't need to add one component at a time. If you keep on adding one component at a time, to set up the cluster, it will take 2-3 days at least. If you understand the architecture of each and every component, and if you determine what all components needs to be deployed, you can do it within half a day to 1 day. Entire thing can be done, including capacity planning and adding all the components to the cluster. I'm not talking about the entire setup process. I'm only talking about using the wizard and set up the cluster. Can take anywhere between half day to 1 day if you understand all the components clearly. And there are other challenges which you will encounter which can extend that time. Those challenges are enabling security like Kerberos, etc. But typical cluster can be done within a day. Okay, so those are the important parameters. And if you want to review all these things from the command line, so we have used the web interfaces and we have seen how we can review the parameter files and important parameters, and also the slaves and masters, app timeline server, history server, etc. Now you can log into the cluster the way I have been doing for all the other tools, for HDFS, for Classic, etc. The same way you have to log into the cluster, and then you can run yarn. 1 minute. MapRed job. Star Stacker will not give that. There should be a command which will actually give us all the nodes in the cluster. So yarn rm admin not this one. Yarn node manager runs a node manager on each layout timeline server. Application attempt, yeah, yarn node, and hit enter. Okay, yarn node all. Okay, yarn node list, and hit enter. So it will give all the node managers that are running on the cluster. So you can get the IP address and all those things. And also to ensure that all the daemon processes are running, you can use the same SSH command. And yarn will be running using, so 245 is slave. Okay, so I have to use in double quotes ps-fu, and yarn will be the user which will be owning the yarn daemon process. So we will see what is running on 245. 245 is running proc underscore node manager. If you run the same command on 246, 247, 248, you will see the same thing. But if you run on the masters, on masters 243 we see resource manager. 244, I think we see both resource manager and timeline server. No, resource manager only. Timeline server is the component within the resource manager itself. It is not separated. So that's why you will not see timeline server on any of the nodes. And job history is related to MapReduce. Unless you set up MapReduce along with yarn, you don't see the job history server. So for example, if you are using Hadoop cluster only for Spark without MapReduce, then you don't need to configure MapReduce too. You just configure yarn and integrate Spark with it. In that context, you don't need to set up the job history server. Job history server is only related to MapReduce. That's why when we run ps-fu mapred, so job tracker is actually from Classic, because I have both Classic and yarn, which is highly unusual. Only that one is there on 244. Nothing related to yarn plus MR2 are here. Similarly, if I run the same command on 243 and hit enter, you can see there is a job history server running on it under mapred user. Okay, again I am highlighting this is very productive way of running SSH command. You have to enable passwordless login, and then you can give SSH username at the rate of IP address, and in the double quotes you can give any command you want. That needs to be run on the remote host and get back to the and stay on the same host from where the commands is running. Otherwise, it will log in, and then you have to type the command and you have to exit and come out. So staying on one host, I am able to run SSH command on multiple hosts. It will improve your productivity quite a bit. And also, if you want to develop any shell scripting using these things, enabling passwordless login and passing the command like this can save a lot of time while scripting your requirements as well. So it's very important to understand the way you can issue commands on the remote host using SSH. Okay, so that being said, now let us talk about parameter files. So parameter files, the location is etc Hadoop conf. Again, when we are using Cloudera Manager, this is not the original location where you will see the current all the parameters that are being used in Cloudera Manager. Okay, if you look into this, it says auto generated by Cloudera Manager, and you should never modify these files. Okay, you should only do configuration changes using command line. You should only do the configuration changes using web interface, the configuration section of the relevant resource. Okay, so now we will to get the actual parameters, we have to log into one of the hosts. So in this case, I am logging into 243, and then under cd var run process, Cloudera SCM agent process ls-ltr. So this is related to so this node has the resource manager, and you can see the directory for the resource manager. You can get into that directory and ls-ltr, and you can get the runtime parameters from the latest directory, which have the service name and the component name in it, and then the unique ID has to be sorted in ascending order. Whatever comes the last should be the one you should use. Last in the sense from the numeric value perspective. Okay, if you want to search for only one particular service, you can say ls-ltr, because you might see multiple directories in some cases. So ls-ltr grep, you can give the service name or service plus component name. You can do whatever you want. Okay, I am already in the directory. cd process. Okay, so there is only one directory, so you can pick it up. If there are multiple directories, choose the one which have the highest number in it. Don't go with the latest one by time. Go with the number here. That is more important, because if some person make changes to the directory offline, then even though the number is different, when you use the ls-ltr command, the latest directory need not be the best one to pick. Okay, always pick the directory which have the highest value if you want to review the parameters to troubleshoot any issues at runtime, and if you don't have access to the Cloudera Manager or Ambari server at that time. Okay, and then on 242 also, on 242 we have only gateway. That's why you will not see the a directory related to resource manager on it, because there is no resource manager or node manager service running on it. But still you can go to var run process, sorry, Cloudera SCM agent process ls-ltr. You can see, okay, there is nothing here. There is no directory to which will show you the parameters here. These are all Cloudera management services, so you will not get the original parameters from here. And the parameters under etc Hadoop conf on the gateway node are computed from the other parameter files from other nodes. So this is the way Cloudera actually manages the parameter files. And then the next thing is validation. So validation, again, I have shown already. Verifying the logs. So validation is about how whether the services are up and running or not, if there is any issue at the service level. So that's where you go to the web interfaces and go to instances, and you will see the details about it, about those things using web interfaces. And whatever I have found so far about running the psi-fu username commands is nothing but validation. After validation, we need to talk about verifying the logs. Okay. So again, the standard location for verifying the logs, you have to go to the node on which a particular service is running, so that we can review the logs. The standard location is var log. And to get the complete directory name, again go to the configurations here. Search for log.dir. I have to clear the scope and category. Yeah. So log.dir. So this is the location for Hadoop yarn, and this is the location for Hadoop MapReduce. So there will be two directories: var log Hadoop yarn and ls-ltr. We have resource manager running on this. That's why you see the log file related to resource manager. So if there are any issues for resource manager to come up, this is the file which you need to troubleshoot. One of the way is you can do grep error like this. So it will actually list all the errors that are going on. If you want to get it in streaming fashion, you can say tail-f. Tail-f is the Linux command which will print the last lines, and then it will get the details in the streaming fashion. So tail-f and then grep. Probably there might be a direct command in the grep itself to actually go through the file and keep on streaming the logs, but this is the command which I am aware of. So grep error. So whenever there whenever errors pops up, it will print those errors here. Okay. Otherwise, you can run this one as well. So right now, if there is any activity happening on Resource Manager, it will print the information from logs into here, and if to come out, you have to hit Control C. So if there is issue happening, and if the log file is you are getting lost in the log file, what you can do is you can just restart the service. Immediately restarting the service or before restarting the service, just run this command, and when the restart happens, it will get all the details what is going on as part of the restart process, and if there are any errors, you will get those errors here, displayed here. You can also redirect using this double greater than symbol into a different file. For the new data that is coming in the logs, you can grep for the errors, and you can only redirect the errors to the other file. So you can use tail command and other Linux features to get the information quickly if you don't have access to the web interfaces. Okay, so this is how you do the you review the logs. But if you are using Cloudera Manager, you can go to the quick links and you can see alerts, critical, all this information comes from the logs itself. So you can go here and you can get the details from the centralized location also. In case of Ambari, choose the service. You can click on Resource Manager logs here, and you can actually go to the logs directly from here. Okay, and now if you go to one directory up, there are two log directories. One is for yarn, one is for MapReduce, and ls-ltr. Because there is only job history server running on this, you can see the log file here. So if there is a component, you will see something there, otherwise you don't see anything over there. Now let me log into the 245 also. Okay, cd var log Hadoop MapReduce ls-ltr. It is empty because there is nothing related to MRV2 on this host. The job history server, which is the component of MapReduce, is on 243, and we can see that on 243. So these directories will be empty if the corresponding process is not running on that host. And now if I go to yarn, by running Hadoop yarn and ls-ltr, we can see the log file for the node manager, because we are running a node manager service on this host. Okay, so next, understand web interface. So the resource manager web interface is this one. You can see that so 8088 is the port number. You have to get the resource manager public DNS or alias, and then you can see what are the applications running on the left side, the cluster capacity or cluster metrics on the top side, and most important things which you need to review is total vCores and total memory. This cluster have 20 GB RAM and 15 vCores. Okay, and these are the jobs that are being run on the cluster. We can actually go through these things. This is the life cycle of the job. The job will start with the new, then it will go to new saving, then submitted, then accepted, then running. Most of the time the jobs will be in the running state or finished state. So new saving, submitted, accepted, running, and finished or failed or killed. So after running, it can be finished or it can be failed or killed. So if you want to review the current running jobs, you can use this section and you can start looking into the jobs, and then you can click on the application, get the application logs, yarn logs, etc. Okay, and then scheduler is about how the capacity is being used, and we will talk about the about this little bit later, probably as part of the next class. Okay, that is about web interface. Now command line interface, I have already shown you a little bit. Again I will review. So yarn is about yarn applications. Even when the jobs are running using when the MapReduce jobs are running under yarn, even then you should use MapRed in some cases where you want to get the details about the MapReduce jobs. Okay, so yarn is a command to get the details about the yarn applications or yarn level details. MapRead is actually for the individual MapReduce jobs that are being submitted and are executed using yarn framework. So you have to be familiar with both of them. So the most important MapRead command is MapRead job list, and it will list if there are any MapReduce jobs that are currently running. If you want to get all the jobs, you can say list all, and you will get all the MapReduce jobs that are being executed on this cluster since it is started or since it is rebooted. Okay, now you can see, I think this is since it is started. You will get all the details of all the MapReduce jobs. So this is how you can actually use MapRead command and yarn command from command line to perform certain tasks. You can explore this command line. Most of them are self-explanatory. There is nothing complex over here. Okay. So we have done configured slaves and masters parameter files, and again we will review the important parameters. So the parameters are categorized into yarn and MapReduce. Okay. When it comes to yarn, the most important parameter is yarn.resourcemanager.address, which will give the resource manager IP address and port number. Okay, and then resource manager web app address is the one which will give the IP address and port number for our resource manager web interface. Again, this resource manager web interface is nothing to do with the Cloudera or Hortonworks. It is provided as part of the Apache Hadoop itself. Okay, and then yarn node manager resource memory MD is the memory setting for the for the node manager. So in our case, on 256 GB cluster, it is 245 GB, which we have allocated for this parameter. Okay, and then these are the ranges. These are the parameters which define the ranges for the containers, for memory and then for vCores. And then yarn resource manager scheduler class comes into picture for using different types of scheduling tools. I will talk about schedulers later, so it's overall a different topic, and I will cover as part of the next class. And then from MRV2 perspective, these are the important parameters. First thing is MapReduce framework.name has to be yarn. There is another value called local. For development purpose, you might be able to use local, where everything will be run locally. It will not use classic if you use local. It will execute MapReduce jobs locally. It is typically used in individual sandboxes where you want to just test your MapReduce programs. Okay, but on the actual clusters, MapReduce framework name has to be yarn. And then MapReduce job history web app address, which will control the IP address and port number for the job history. You will understand more about job history when we actually submit the MapReduce jobs and go through the life cycle of the MapReduce jobs a little bit later. And then here you can say what is the amount of memory for the map task should be allocated, what is the amount of memory for the reduce task should be allocated, and how many cores should be allocated between for the map task and reduce task. So these are the parameters which will actually control from the MapReduce perspective how much resources should be allocated for map task and reduce tasks. And these tasks will be executed in JVMs. So if you want to play with the JVM related parameters, then you can use MapReduce map Java ops, MapReduce reduce Java ops. It's primarily for setting up the JVM heap size for the child task of map container. Okay, so in case of map container, the child task will be map task. In case of reduce container, the child task will be reduce task. Okay, so these are the ones for JVM. Typically, we will leave them as 0. It will be inherited from whatever value are defined by other parameters. And MapReduce input file input format dot split dot min size is the one which will actually control the number of map tasks that needs to process the data, and we will see that in detail when we actually run the MapReduce job later. Now comes validation. Let me check the time. 7:36. So I will run a job, and I will try to review and see how much time it will take. If it takes too long, then we will defer it for the next class. So earlier we have spoken about validation of the components, whether they are up and running or not, by going into the Cloudera Manager or Ambari, going into the instances portion of the service, and also from the command line. Now, in this case, we will try to validate by running the job also. That is another important thing. Even though everything is everything is showed in green, when we actually submit the MapReduce job, sometimes it will run into issues. Okay, so I will explain how to validate by running the job and making sure everything is working well. Okay, so again, to do that, we will use Hadoop examples.jar file. The way I am not sure whether I have executed before as part of the administration class, but in the developer class I have executed that. We use the same Hadoop examples.jar file to validate it. Okay, so let me see the current usage of my cluster, because I will be running a pretty heavy job. So let me remove everything. And then sudo -u hdfs hadoop fs expunge. It will remove the information from the trash, otherwise I will run out of the storage. Hadoop fs ls user root du -s -h user root. So du is disk usage. So if you use this command, we will see how much storage is being used currently, and still it is using 44 GB, sorry, 132 GB storage on the cluster, and most of that in the trash. So it is still not expunged completely. So we have to wait until it is expunged, otherwise I will be running into out of storage issues. Okay, let me do this. rm -r user root dot trash. Okay, anyway, now it is deleted. Okay, I should have said ./tal, but it's okay. I will create the trash directory again, or I think it will be created automatically. Okay, now let us review how much storage it is taking. Now it is 0, everything is gone. Now what I will do is I will run a job called Hadoop examples. As an administrator, you don't need to worry about what is it doing, but there will be a file called Hadoop MapReduce examples.jar. If you are not sure where the location is, you can run find /name Hadoop *examples*.jar and hit enter. Okay, so you can pick this one. Don't pick this one. This is for classic, and I think it uses old API. Okay, so make sure you pick this one. Okay, so you can use Hadoop jar, the jar file name, Hadoop jar, the jar file name, and then the program name. The program name is, if you hit enter, you will see a lot of programs which are available as part of these examples. I'll be using random text writer, and it writes 10 GB of random textual data per node. So there will be 10 GB of data which will be generating with this application randomly. So random text writer and the output path. So this one does not read anything from anywhere, so we don't need to pass input path here. It takes only one parameter, the application, which is output path, to which the data will be written. Okay, so don't run this one when you try to validate the cluster in production, because if it generates 10 GB worth of data for each of the node, and if you have 100 nodes in the cluster, then it will generate almost 1 terabyte of data. Okay, even if you run it, make sure you delete the directory once you have validated. So once you submitted the job, it will create a URL. So in this case, it is using private IP. So I need to enable tunneling. Again, if you are using virtual machines, and don't run this random text writer job which will generate 10 GB worth of data. Rather, try to get 1 GB worth of data from somewhere and then run it, load into the HDFS and run word count job on it rather than random text writer. Okay. But for for EC2 instances, cluster on EC2 instances on AWS, you can run the random text writer to understand how the MapReduce jobs will be submitted. Okay, so I have opened in the shell tab. Here I have to launch a session with this port number 8157, so that I can actually start tunneling by enabling Foxy proxy in the browser. If you go through my videos and if you are performing hands-on, you will be able to understand this thing easily. Now it is up, the Foxy proxy is running. Take the URL which is generated here immediately after submitting the job. Okay, so there is some issue with my cluster. I have to fix it. That's why it is complaining. So let me see what the issue is. Cloudera Manager, HDFS. I think I should not have deleted the trash. Free space. Okay, let me. Okay, they are started. Okay, now it is changing the status to let me restart these things. So we'll be getting into Q&A in a moment. Let me fix this issue and let me try whether I will be able to run the job and show you the details. Anyway, still I can review, so no need to worry about it. So here, once the job is submitted, it will generate this URL. You can use this URL, go to the browser, paste it over here, and it will take you to the application. Okay, because HDFS is not up and running, it's showing not found. Anyway, we will continue probably next week about validating the jobs, and then we will cover the rest of the topics. Probably once we complete yarn, the rest of the stuff will be very fast. You will be covering one tool in every class. Scoop will take hardly 1 hour. Pig will be Scoop and Pig will be covered as part of one class. Hive will be covered as part of probably 1 or 1.5 classes, and every rest of the stuff will be very fast. Again, we will be spending quite a bit of time on Spark, because the course is Hadoop and Spark administration, and you need to know how to manage Spark also in detail. So we will be spending good amount of time on Spark. Rest of the stuff will be very fast. Okay, so now I will be opening for the Q&A. You can ask any question before we wrap up for today. Any questions you have? Hello? Okay, as you guys are not asking any questions, let us see what we can do in the rest of the 10-15 minutes we have. Still it is complaining about free space. So the way you can troubleshoot these issues is, it will be a very good exercise. It is complaining about free space on 246 and 248. Okay, and if we log into 246, SSH, you can say df or df-h. So you can see this location is almost 47 gig used and 9.8 available. So it is actually using a lot of storage, and we have to troubleshoot this. I have cleaned up the entire data from HDFS, and still it is using this much of storage. So we need to understand where the issue is. Okay, the way you should troubleshoot is, you can say du-sh /* on the root directory. So it will so slash is the root directory and star is the subdirectories or files under it. Okay, so by running this command, we can see which directory is taking most amount of storage. Here it's /dfs. Okay, so we have to do /dfs, go to /dfs, and then run du-sh *. You can see dn is the directory which is taking all the 41 gigabytes, and then du-sh * again 41 GB here. So I think the issue was I removed the .trash directory, right? So probably it might not be able to clean. So you should never do that. I thought to quickly fix the issue, I deleted the .trash. So it is actually showing incorrect result when we run du-sh command in the HDFS, but in reality the data is not cleaned up yet. So that's the reason. So this is the way you should troubleshoot the issues in real time. These are the mistakes that can happen. Okay, sudo -u HDFS Hadoop SS -expunge. Okay, now let me connect to 245 or 246. What is the host name which is complying 246, and then du-sh and hit enter. It should be 246. I am connecting to 242. Now it is 52K. Sorry, I have to run df minus h. So df is, it will try to show the free space on the disks in the human readable format if you use -h. So still it is under 47 gigs. So I have to troubleshoot this issue further and clean up the files to reclaim the storage. Because I removed that .ref directory, it internally lost the contact with the blocks that are there on that, and it is causing the issue now. Okay, actually probably sudo -u hdfs, sorry -su hdfs, and then hdfs dfs admin. There are many commands here. We might be able to fix that issue. So hdfs balancer, yeah, hdfs balancer, hit enter. The cluster is balanced, but the data is not being cleaned up, even though I run expense multiple times. So not sure. Anyway, I will troubleshoot and I will actually fix this issue. Unless I fix this issue, I will not be able to do anything here. Okay, yeah, so let's wait for a couple of minutes more. If you have any questions, I will take the questions. Otherwise, we will wrap up for today. Everything is like that only, so I have to actually clean it up from the back end. Let me try this. cd /dfs ls-ltr cd-dn ls-ltr cd current ls-ltr cd-bp ls-ltr du-sh star. So current is the directory which is occupied. ls-ltr du-sh star finalized cd finalized ls-ltr So 0 and 1 are the ones which are occupying a lot of capacity. Okay, I think if I have not deleted that .ref, it might have reclaimed the storage. Now it lost the contact. That's why you can see all the blocks here. So I will try to fix that issue later. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we will wrap up for today. Okay then, thank you very much. We will catch up on Tuesday. Have a nice one. Bye.